What's up, everybody? Existential Shaman here to make another video, and I've been thinking about the contents of my videos, and I don't take back what I said, but I want to basically redirect this channel and change the direction to something that I think that would benefit more people. This video is about counter-dependency. I could go on about spirituality and the depths of consciousness, but again, what I'm getting at is going to make a bigger difference, I think. So what is counter-dependency? It's the opposite of codependency, and America's kind of a breeding ground for this, and I want to say that I'm directing this video towards the men for the most part, and I'm not saying that it can't happen to women. It's probably women who are strongly in the workforce already. So, counterdependency, and this is something that's not so well known, and I want to know more from people who are watching these videos. What your experiences of this are. Counter-dependency is, a need to always be right, and it's basically running from any form of intimacy, and it's a very, very hard thing to detect in yourself and others, and basically, it's an inability to genuinely empathize with others, and I'm saying this because I come from a very ambitious family, and I think I have 3 older brothers, and collectively my family kind of suffers from counter-dependency, and we're all going through this change together. My eldest brother is a CEO of $1 million company. My dad has a title. I've got a whole career lined up ahead of me. I'm in my last semester of college. I'm an alpha male quite often. I work out every day. I've gained a lot of muscle mass. And it's the thing is, if you look at a lot of people who have achieved a lot in the world, like Steve Jobs or Michael Jordan or whoever, even though some people have gone to great heights, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. If you have a groundbreaking idea and if you're motivated, you should do that. But at this point right now, workaholism is a fatal epidemic in Japan. I know that I had a counter-dependency crash, basically, and it was driven by the American dream. It's this ultimate American image to have everything figured out, have everything squared away. I don't have drug problems, I don't have a criminal background or anything, but a real symptom of this is over-perfectionism and having this wall to hide behind, and it's impossible to stay behind that wall. I think that I've got a particularly bad case of counterdependency, because I think it's harder for me to ask for help more than most other men out there, even for little things. And again, it's because I had one good parent. He's the one who did achieve some things in the world, but he's still got some emotional balance. He was still a nurturing father. My other parent was really bad, and because of that, I wasn't codependent, where that's where you fulfill your needs through someone else. I was like, fuck it, I don't need anybody, and I left my whole family, and that was my emotional reaction to trauma. So this is for the men out there, and I'm not going to say it doesn't happen to women, so keep that in mind. And for me, my counterdependency crash just got so extreme. I had been playing guitar for 15 years. I got so good I was playing solos over my head, this happened during my astrological transit, Pluto conjunct Sun, and I'm not trying to push away any atheists or any Christians or any spiritual people. I think this can apply to, most men in America. I think 75% of men have some kind of counterdependency thing going on. And this may be a collective result of the recession, I don't know, or it's just the way America is, where men are programmed to be strong, have it all figured out, and, push the emotions to the back burner. This happened to me even though I was trying to make an effort to be emotionally healthy. I learned a lot about psychology, self-taught, but in the end I was still avoiding depending on others at all, and to the point where it became dysfunctional. I was trying so hard to be functional that I became dysfunctional. Think about that for a second. And I had difficulty cooperating. It was just, please let me be by myself. I don't need anyone. And, I don't really need to say too much more to describe the nature of this disease. But with my crash, I basically got proposed to by a woman. My best friend that I was living with was the only one that I needed, and I was trying desperately to not need him. That he was just helping me out a little bit financially, but so basically I took on a job where I was working like 30 hours straight, sometimes 48 hours straight, and like almost dying constantly, and I threw my guitar in the dumpster. Like, I gave up my spirituality, which I recommend spirituality to anyone with counter dependency, especially. It's going to benefit you. And the thing is, like, this is something that most men are suffering from. My family's going through this whole thing, even with all the success. And even though I've got plenty of success ahead of me, my crash came so badly because, a lot of people think I'm military just by meeting me. And, when the crash happened, I got really pissed off at my fiance. I threw my guitar out. My best friend, he did like kind of leave, and I couldn't keep up with my rent, and I lost my apartment. I accumulated a lot of debt, and in my opinion, some higher spiritual force forced me to face what I was running from anyways. If you need help, you should remember to ask for it. And basically, it actually creates more problems in the workplace than it creates solutions. Because I thought I was solving problems by not getting in anyone's way and just depending on myself, but now that I'm past my counter-dependency crash, it's actually smoothing things out when I know when to ask people for the right thing, and when I need help. And the thing is, it's avoiding emotional pain is what you're doing, and you may go through a lot of chaos. I kind of bottomed out as far as grieving goes. I was just like crying like all the time, and I was pretty dysfunctional, and now it's more like I've got a different emotional rhythm going on, and I'm starting to understand the nuances of how I feel. And if you're ready to go into your vulnerability, which with counterdependency is going to terrify the shit out of you at first, there's a difference between being emotionally courageous and just being like, fuck it, I got it, I'm Superman. That's what counterdependency is all about. Like, I got it, I'm the tough guy. And I am tough, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm all muscle. But I ran a half marathon. I came in 44th out of 3,000. I could probably, stand a good fight with a lower average police officer, but I went too far with it, and I crashed, and I stopped functioning as a result. So that's an indication that it's gone too far. I mean, you know, you kind of have to go against culture a little bit here, like, because culture is just going to tell you to be strong, be tough, you know, don't, you know, men don't cry and all that bullshit. But as someone who is personally connected to very successful people, and I'm seeing them go through this transformation, my brother's like doing $1 million deals with his company, and he's like getting hit by this counter dependency. Like, I'll tell you, no matter how successful you are, and really to men in general, like, don't try to be so successful. I mean, if you have what you need, you know, if you have what you need, then you're good, you know, and try and find a limit in developing a real boundary, emotional, mental, spiritual boundaries with other people, and, you know, listen to your wife, you know. I mean, I'm a man's man in all the right ways, but, you know, I'm frickin' going to school with, like, you know, military dudes, like alpha male stuff. We're fixing, you know, telephone poles and doing, you know, light construction shit. But still, like, you know, I've got to say that now that I'm learning to, you know, get in touch with my feelings and learning to accept that I'm human, that I need help, it's a lot, life is a lot smoother after the crash. And I don't know, it's kind of necessary to go through the crash so that you can see just how extreme that attitude is. I mean, I was like a fucking machine, like, for a good 6 months. You know, I was riding my bike 10 miles to get to work. I'd hook the company trailer up to the company van, push a 2,000-pound pressure washer up the ramp, drive to another state, sometimes pick up a coworker who's like 20 miles away, and then pressure wash an entire grocery store, and then go back for like 24 to 48 hours, go back, disassemble all the shit, and then ride my bike 10 miles back home. I mean, I was the American self-made man. But I'm 30, and I want a lasting marriage, you know? And another thing with counterdependency, and this is why I'm talking to the men, and I'm not saying women don't have counterdependency, but sex is not an intimate relationship. You've got to learn to see more in a woman than just that, and learn to listen to them, and you know, because you're doing things to your brain, like you're trying to manipulate your brain chemicals into giving you something where really there's a wounded child inside. Those other things, you can try and fulfill them, but really they're going to cause others and yourself just more pain. And the thing with counterdependency is you want closeness. You want it so badly, but at the same time you like, stay the fuck away from me. So people are getting these two conflicting, one is an emotional, genuine need, and another one is an automated defense mechanism. And these defense mechanisms, you needed them in childhood, but you gotta learn to stop relying on them because they're actually holding you back from growing as a person. And for me, it was actually holding me back from real success in the world, because I'm learning to be more of a team player, you know, where even if I have to ask a woman who's like way shorter than me and, you know, much more feminine, if I have to ask her for help, I will. You know, and for me, that's growing as a man, you know, in this culture and in this world. Because, you know, ultimately, you know, I'm going to try and be less extreme than my other videos, because I see this whole system as a form of slavery, you know, and it's not really like that. You've got to learn to live with reality, and I talk about the top 1%, how we're all in control of, you know, this whole thing. But ultimately, what I learned from my counterdependency crash is I experienced so many near-death things, so many near-death experiences. I realized I'm not going to take that shit with me. I'm going to take my soul, my being, which is something that, you know, I can leave a legacy if I do create a business someday. but you're ultimately working for a system that you don't own and that you're not in control of. And you can rise as high as you want, but there are people who are more powerful who are running the game. So I'm not trying to upset anyone. Just, achieve if you can. Do your best. But at the same time, you've got to have more underneath that, more of who you are. And that's, if you want to get into spirituality that's closer to source energy, like, pure consciousness and Hinduism, but really from a purely psychological standpoint, it's if you're in your 20s, you're gonna get older someday, and you're going to, you don't want to be on your deathbed like regretting, the loss of connections to the people closest to you. That's the darkest way to say, I think, the lesson that counterdependency imposes. But, for me, I just got to such a point where I was like, fuck it, I just can't do this. Like, this sucks, and I'm running from my pain, and, I've given up on my own needs, and, this is all about exploring those things, and, achieve, yes, but just don't, you don't really need to make being a millionaire, your top priority, because quite often that's a short-sighted mindset that's not even going to get you there. And learn what I learned, because I was heavily influenced by American culture. I was like, okay, sex is intimacy, and it's not. Cuddling is intimacy, and hugs and all that bullshit. It's also good for you. And everyone has different feelings, and all of this terminology I use is subjective, and it's all a matter of opinion. And the best thing to do is to pay attention to your needs and do not neglect your needs, because that's what counterdependency, they fear that the most, is what they need and fulfilling what they need, and not just like outer success. There's more. And in ancient Rome, they had full, well-rounded, I think there's a lot of problems with ancient Rome, but they had well-rounded education, and I think the men were more in touch with their feminine sides, and even after my crash, I still had a lot of problems. I was still trying to be an alpha male. I was like, how much can I bench press? I gotta bench press as much as I fucking can, and now, like, I'm healthier. I'm not really trying to lift as much, and a lot of the bigger dudes in the gym who were kind of teaching me when I started a couple years ago, they were like, don't even worry about lifting a shit ton. Just add quality to your reps. And I think in life it's important to focus on quality more than quantity, and with personal relationships, connect to people when you really need them. And I'm still terrified, in my counterdependency, to need other people. But for me, I've got a lot of spiritual and self-knowledge based on astrology, and even with all that knowledge, I was able to intellectualize and be up here instead of down here in the gut, where the gut feelings come from. But I am learning to hear things more multidimensionally. I'm learning to experience the fullness of my emotions more, and I kind of had to have the universe just break me down. I mean, there was no other way to do it, and this is the aftermath of all that, like rising from my, self-destruction. It was a work addiction. It was an I am strong addiction. I don't need anyone. I'm not struggling. I got this, and that's. I am a genuinely confident person, but for me, and even as I enter the work, get into my career, I'm gonna, in the back of my mind, I don't need to kill myself here. So I hope that the men out there were able to, and the women who have counterdependency, were able to benefit from this video, because we are not like codependents. We might be feeling needy as fuck, but we do not wear that on our sleeves. Like, I am a rock, but I'm trying not to be such a rock, because goddamn, I've been through some rough fucking times, and I'd be I'd become Hitler if I didn't start, working on these feelings. And I want a lasting marriage, and I want a fulfilling emotional life. And for me, I just thought when I was an adult, okay, I need to become this Superman now, and that's a big mistake that held me back from, now that I'm 30, I'm learning early, to give my personal self and my soul some care and attention, and I am where I am. I could compare myself to my $1 million business brother, or my father, who's on the Chamber of Commerce. Compare myself to plenty of people, but accepting where I am now and what my needs are and what I'm capable of. Because if you are like me, just getting into counterdependency, you have to take baby steps in your intimate relationships, where it's not just purely sexual, where there's sharing feelings and gazing into someone's eyes, all that stuff that I know counterdependents are afraid of. That is courage. Courage is doing what you're afraid of. Courage is defined by fear, and there's that automated barrier of, oh, I'm not afraid. That's one kind of fearlessness. Another one is I'm feeling this, I'm in pain, I'm afraid. That's more of a childlike vulnerability that, if you do talk about this in my other videos, if you grew up in the Western world, you most likely have a trauma scar that goes back to childhood. And again, I'm getting a little more spiritual. Pluto in the 4th house is conjunct to my sun, which it's all bringing me back to childhood, and I'm experiencing emotional flashbacks. So that's a whole other compartment of psychology for you. But basically, your brain, if you've been through trauma and you're counter-dependent, your brain is actually producing chemicals of fear and stress. So I've learned to massage myself frequently. I do yin yoga as well as power yoga. I do it all. And even when you start facing these vulnerabilities, you're going to get a mortal terror of facing them. You will. And you've got to just go straight through it and not overwhelm yourself, and understand when you are overwhelmed and why. Because all of those reasons, you might run into someone today and they leave this strong impression on you, oh, fuck that guy, but you're not actually pissed off at that guy you met this day. That triggered something from way back. So this is for counterdependence and their vulnerability. Whatever does upset you, because I think that even though you hide it from a lot of people, you'll know what does upset you, and you got to figure out where that root is, where that's coming from a long time ago, and explore catharsis. There's nothing wrong with being angry. There's nothing wrong with being sad. There's nothing wrong with a lot of that, with grieving and being sad. But at first, before you face this thing you're terrified of, is depending on others. You have to understand that your own brain, your own body, your own biochemistry is fighting that, and that's natural. It's just a natural human response to trauma, and you've got to just push through that. And it's not like the average counterdependency, I am Superman. No, it is an emotional courage, an emotional bravery to face wherever all of your triggers point towards. Something that triggers you, stresses you out of proportion. It's pointing you to something that probably happened in childhood. But I also experienced a lot of trauma in my early 20s that really changed me and made me super counterdependent. So maybe something that happened to you when you're older. But the point is that it's most likely someone let you down, and they let you down in really sinister and maybe even criminal way. And so therefore you're like, no, I need to be capable, I need to be strong, I need to be able to take on anything. And you can't. It's impossible. And you can bully and intimidate your way into making it seem that way, but you're not gonna, it's just gonna hurt. It's gonna make your wounds get bigger. And that shit, it really hurts if you go too far down that road and you become less able and you grow faster, like you get older faster. So yeah, this was my big video on counterdependency, and I hope this helped the right people out there. Have a great day.